The prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms, of war and of evil and of pestilence. Jeremiah chapter 28 and verse 8. Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha, Kodash, and double honors to our venerable apostles, elders, and bishops of Great Millstone on down, and peace and blessings to the Lord's elect, the house of David. It's the brother Aharon coming back at you with another lesson, Lord willing to be edifying and uplifting unto the elect. All right, and today is the 3rd of April, 2026. All right, the year of sellouts, all right, apostates, agents, all right, and the time of Jacob's trouble. Okay, now, speaking of the time of Jacob's trouble, you know, if you've been paying attention, you know what time it is, right? And now the world is catching up to the times that we're in, okay? And it's only going to get worse, like we always say. Now, I have an article here I want to go into, all right, and it's titled, EU is now pondering fuel rationing as war continues, okay? And if the EU is doing it, all right, being that this is a global thing, if the EU, all right, the European Union nations are doing it, then you best believe that it's ultimately going to hit here in America, Babylon the Great. And the difference between the EU nations and America is the EU nations are actually, they have support in the sense of neighboring countries where you can still have some relationships with, Asian countries, right? Even Russia, right? But when you look at the West, all right, America is very isolated. And when you have your president, destroying the whole concept of NAFTA, which is the whole concept of free trade with Canada and Mexico, he comes in and he destroys all that. What it does is that it isolates America, and she's put by herself. Now, all these other countries that would in the past would be quick to come to America's aid, they're no longer in the mood to do that, because of America's foreign policy decisions, it's affected their economies, it's affected their ways of living. Okay, so they're not going to be eager to come and help America if and when America is in need. That's why it tells you in the book of Jeremiah that we would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Okay, nobody's going to be coming to the aid of America. Therefore, you Americans are screwed royally. Okay, and this is all done by Yahweh Bashim Yahushua as a punishment, all right, to the inhabitants of modern day Egypt. Okay, it says here, a quiet warning has begun to echo through political corridors, the kind that doesn't spark immediate panic, but lingers long enough to unsettle. Behind measured language and carefully chosen words, officials are now acknowledging a possibility that once seemed unthinkable: fuel rationing. And fuel rationing eventually will lead to trucks stopping, okay? Because your economy all around the world goes with the trucks. As the trucks go, so does your country, so does your economy. I don't care what anybody says. You can't tell me, oh, AI is going to fix it. No, this is not something AI is going to fix. Okay? The problems are way too big. All right? And it's something that's been building for years. Okay? It says it's no longer dismissed as alarmist speculation. Instead, it sits firmly within the range of all possibilities. All possibilities. A phrase that carries more weight than it first appears. The concern is not rooted in a single crisis, but a convergence of pressures. Okay? Pressure from above, pressure from below. Remember that. This is all done by design. This is not by accident. This is all done by design, carefully orchestrated by Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. Okay? And we were warning of these days to come for years to let you know that this isn't going to come by some form of suddenly, oh my goodness, what happened? We have no idea. No. We're tracking all these things. We're giving warnings since prior to 2020, the whole demic situation. All right, that was like a kickstart to what is known as the new normal. Now you better prepare for another new normal. And this time it's in lockstep with you will own nothing and you'll be happy. That's the new normal. Okay? It says here, global instability, strained supply chains, and the fragile balance of energy markets have combined to create a situation where certainty is slipping. Okay, meaning chaos is about to ensue. That's what that means. Certainty is slipping. It says governments are being forced to plan not just for what is likely, but for what could happen if multiple systems falter at once. And that's what you're seeing all around the world. It's not just maybe one country in Europe. Like I said, it's a global thing because everything is interconnected. right? We live in a so-called connected world, okay, with the internet and so on and so forth. So expect a lot of instability. You know, you got two words, inter and intra, right? Instability, which is between countries, right? Between nations, as Yahweh Shai said, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. And then you have intra, which is within nations, right? So you have civil war, civil unrest, and so on and so forth. So it's going to be chaotic all over the place, man. Okay? Death and destruction all over the place, like Hexeth said. Okay? It says here, governments are being forced to plan not just for what is likely, but for what it could happen. But for what could happen if multiple systems falter at once. Fuel, the lifeblood of modern economies, has become a focal point of that anxiety. Okay, and yesterday my brother and I were speaking, and we're going into how Amazon is going to start putting a surcharge on your purchases. I believe starting April 17th, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so you're going to see a 3% bump in your charge and your fees. Okay, my mom was about to go to work yesterday. She called for an Uber, and it's like 5 minutes away. They're charging $15. I'm like, yo, you could walk to your job. It's right there, right? But they're charging $15. Why? Because they're tacking on the strain of the whole energy crisis that's going on, the fuel prices going up. They're tacking that onto the consumers, and all these corporations are going to do that. And it's the same blueprint they're going to use when they do the whole data centers that they're trying to build. They're going to do the same thing. They tell you first that, oh, it's going to be passed on to the companies that are building the data centers. They're going to be paying for this shit. But then they're building the infrastructure, which not only connects the people's, it's not like they're setting up a separate, form of electrical grid for data centers. No, they're going to be using the ones that people are using right now. The so-called civilians, their power grids are going to be what's supporting these so-called data centers. And they're going to pass the bill on to you. So you get less power and you pay more for a data center that's created and designed to be your so-called police, your so-called surveillance, your so-called government. That's what these data centers are for. All right. You have compute, you have data, and then there's one more. All right. When it comes to me, I'll say it. But you have compute, you have data, and then there's one more that you have. Those three things. I believe it's power or energy, right? Compute, data, and power/energy. These three things go together to build up these so-called AI systems. All right. So it says here, officials insist that there is no immediate need for drastic measures. Yet, the very act of preparing for rationing signals a shift in tone. Contingency plans are not drafted lightly. All right. It says they emerge when the margin for error narrows, when leaders recognize that even unlikely scenarios must be accounted for. In practical terms, rationing would mean controlled access, right? Who's going to be doing the controlling? Your governments, just like CV. They're going to run the same blueprint, just change the bad guy from an invisible enemy to something that we can all see, right? I mean, back in 2020, we could say, oh, there is no virus. Like, I'm not afraid of this shit. I'm not going to go take a jump shot because I don't believe that there is a virus out there, or at least how they're depicting it to be, right? They were like, oh, if you get this, you out of here. It's killing people, cases, and we're just out here like normal, like, hey, you know what? It's all good. You know what I'm saying? It's just a regular cold. We're going to be all right. I came up with the sea ragamuffin killer tea drink. You know what I'm saying? You make that, it takes care of it. You don't need to worry about nothing else. You don't need no jump shot for that, right? But this time, it's not going to be, because we could see it. I mean, we go to the gas station, you could see it. It's not like COVID. You know what I'm saying? This you could see. You could feel, right? So it's going to be more impactful. Just like Klaus Schwab said, it's going to make CV look like a walk in the park. And that's true. That is very true, because this is going to affect every single aspect and facet of life. Okay? And this is going to happen within less than a month. If all this shit was to shut down in less than a month, it's going to be game over. All right? It's going to be game over because the system is already weak as it is. All right? We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. The system is weak as it is. So anything else to tip it over is going to be a wrap. It ain't no coming back, man. There's no coming back. You give America another 100 years, she's never going to recover from the disruptions that's about to hit this place, man. Okay? So it says here, And as I'm reading this, even though it's talking about the EU, you have to also remember that it's going to be coming over here, but it will be worse over here because again, America is isolated. All right. Even if you're going to be getting help, if you're in Germany, France could help you. It will take a few hours for them to get to you. But if you're in the US and even France wants to help you, they got to fly over, it was 8 hours or so, if not more, to bring their ass all the way to America and then go through another process before the people even get the stuff. You see what I'm saying? So Americans are going to feel it really, really, really bad. Okay. It says here, it says for the public, the idea carries, let me see. Yep. The idea carries an almost historical weight. Fuel rationing evokes memories of wartime austerity, of cues and limits of a society forced to adapt overnight. What is that? What does that signal? That signals them breaking down the system long enough to have the people come to them for everything else. Life, healthcare, whatever, food, shelter, everything. And of course, they're going to present you with that $2,000 check that Trump said he was going to give. They're going to give that through the CBDC. Okay. And that's going to be the only way around. The CBDC, which is then going to be turned into the microchip. Okay. As in you have the money, but in order to actually be able to use it, you know what I'm saying? You're going to have the chip. All right. It's just that simple. It's coming. Okay. It says that imagery is powerful, and perhaps that is why officials tread carefully, balancing transparency with reassurance. No one wants to trigger fear, but neither can they afford complacency. And that's because you got social media. All right. Social media makes it very difficult for these world governments to actually control the narrative. All right. And that's why a lot of these roundtable meetings that they be having and simulations, their number one priority is controlling the flow of information. Because if you don't have control of the flow of information, then your narratives are not going to work. Okay. Or even if it does work, it's going to work on a very few people, because if information is going out and it's opposite from what you want the people to believe, then it's not going to work. Okay. That's why it tells you in the book of Isaiah 47, stand now with thine enchantments. Okay. The enchantments goes into their ability to use the media to influence the minds of the people. Okay. You got was it Revelation 17? The nations have drank of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, right? How did that happen? It's through their influence, their media, their Hollywood. Okay. The hollow wood. That's all going into witchcraft, man. That's the enchantments that we're talking about. Okay. So it says here, it says energy markets can shift rapidly. Actually, hold on. What makes this moment particularly tense is the unpredictability of what lies ahead. It says energy markets can shift rapidly, influenced by geopolitical decisions, environmental events, or economic shocks. Okay, economic shocks. A single disruption can ripple outward. Okay, exposing vulnerabilities that had gone unnoticed. In that context, preparation becomes less about expectation and more about resilience. There is also a broader question beneath the surface. How prepared are modern societies for sudden constraint? For decades, abundance has been the norm, and systems have been built around the assumption of constant availability. That's what you have here in America. Okay, that's why these people, even though they see what's going on across the world, they are not preparing like it's going to ever come here. Like the average American is living life like everyday normal, like, oh, things are just normal. Yeah, gas prices are up and, your expenses are up, but they're not really doing anything about it. Right? That's America. They're not doing shit about it. Okay? They're just going about, just living their life like ain't nothing going on. Your health insurance is going up, your rent is going up, everything is going up, and you're getting notifications from these companies telling you that they're going to bump up your premiums without any explanation. And then when you call them to find out what the hell is going on, they give you the runaround. No, we have no idea what's going on. Call so and so. Oh, you're gonna have to reach out to your district or your city or your region. Oh, you're gonna have to reach out to the federal government. Oh, you're gonna have to reach out to God at this point, right? So essentially, and that's what a lot of people gonna end up doing. Right? They're gonna go back looking for the Lord. It tells you in the book of Proverbs. Let's get that. Because they're going to realize very quickly that their problems can't be solved by the governments. Okay, that's why it tells you in the book of second Esdras. All right, hold on. Right here. Let's get it real quick. Second Esdras chapter. Let me see. Second Esdras chapter 15, verse 16, it says, "For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power." Why are they not going to regard their kings nor princes? Because the faith that they have in their so-called elected officials will fail. Okay? A lot of people are going to turn on their so-called elected officials, your presidents, your prime ministers, your governors, your mayors, because what they're doing is going to be so blatant. As it is now, it will get worse, right? It's going to be so blatant that people are going to finally settle in that, yo, these people are actually doing this against us, right? How can your government be signing deals with private corporations to then make your public assets privatized, right? Housing. Nobody is involved in the housing crisis as much as BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. And these are private corporations. They're not people, they're corporations, right? So it's like an entity that doesn't deal with people. It deals with other corporations, right? You have your fictitious person, so to speak, your corporate person, your name in all caps. So that's your corporate person that they're dealing with, all right? Not the real human being, so to speak. So when people finally realize that the system has been built on fraud this whole time, it's like, oh shit, yo, what the fuck? Yeah, they're gonna do nothing but cry to the Lord. Okay, they shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. Let's get that. And how they gonna be doing that? They're gonna be seeking the prophets. Okay, because they're gonna remember that, yo, these men were saying all these things was gonna come to pass. They were saying this, they were warning us. They weren't just saying, they were warning us, man. They gave us every scenario that we're living through right now. They told us this, man. We just wasn't prepared to accept it. We just couldn't see it. Like, how can you say this about America? Do you know how great America is? No. America's never gonna go down. I've had people say that personally to me. Like, no. America's gonna live on forever, bro. America's not gonna. Oh, Trump could go down, but America's not going down. You know how great America is, and I just laugh. Right? That's the only thing you can do is laugh. Right? So continuing, it says, going back to Proverbs chapter 1, I'm gonna jump down to verse 25. Okay, it says, "But ye have set at naught all my counsel, and would none of my reproof." All right, the Lord gave a correction, and you rejected it. All right, you rejected it. It says, "I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear cometh." Okay, when your fear cometh as desolation, and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind. Okay, it's a disaster that engulfs you. There's nothing you can do about it, and it happens suddenly, right? Imagine that shit. Like, yo, imagine being in the worst case scenario, right? Not having money, because money's a defense, right? Not having money in this day and age, and then something happens where you need money to go take care of it. Do you see the feeling of frustration and helplessness that you feel when you go to a moment like that? And then guess what happens on top of that? You try making a call and your phone bill hasn't been paid, so now they cut out your phone. So now you can't call nobody. And so now you start thinking like, yo, who do I reach out to? You're going to keep thinking. And every single, thought process or thought to an answer will just be diminished, because then you be like, oh, I need a phone to call this person, but I don't, just like that. You see? And now you're stuck in the middle of nowhere, right? And you barely have enough gas to get to the next town, right? You don't have money. Maybe hoping that maybe if you make it to the next town, some good Samaritan somewhere could help you out. Think of that kind of worst case scenario, bro. Nobody knows where you're at. You don't even know where you're at. Who do you reach out to? And nowadays people don't remember phone numbers. So even if you were to say, oh, let me try to see if I could call so and so. And maybe your phone is out of here. Like maybe let's say it just died. Forget about, you can't make calls. Nah, it's just dead. Like you can't, how about this? You can't even find your phone. So then somebody could say, oh, I could give you my phone to use to call, but you don't even remember people's numbers. So who are you going to call first? You see? So society has been so dependent and reliant on the system. And when the system goes down, the people are not going to survive. Okay? They're not going to survive. If your normal has always been, I go to a grocery store to get food, and you have no knowledge of how that food gets to the grocery store, or even how to even grow your own crops, cultivate, you have no knowledge of that because it never occurred to you to even think about that, right? It's not like you went to school for it. You're just like, oh yeah, grocery stores. Like it's there. I can go there whenever I want and buy stuff. There are certain grocery stores that are open 24/7. Legit, like they never close. You know what I'm saying? Imagine that, being used to something like that, your whole life living like that. And now all of a sudden, within a span of a few weeks, right? A few days to a few weeks, all that shit comes tumbling down. Yeah. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 25, it says, but ye have set at naught all my counsel and would none of my reproof. I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear cometh. When your fear cometh as desolation and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind, right? It just never stops. When distress and anguish cometh upon you, then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. Okay? So that's what the Lord is saying. He's telling you right now, off top, look, you're going to look for me when the time comes, and I'm not going to be there for you. I'm going to take all my men away from you getting access to them, because when you had access to them, what did you do? You did videos talking shit about what they're doing. When I was giving them the word, I sent men from the spirit world. The Lord sent us down here. He could have put us anywhere in the world. Nope. He said, you're going to go straight to Babylon. And where my people are, you're going to prophesy unto them and warn them of what I'm going to do in the process of destroying Babylon. And I come deliver mine elect. And when we came down here, what do? We prophesied and told these people, gave them warning pertaining to Ezekiel 3:17. And the elect would do what? They listened. But the rest, they didn't listen to what the Lord had to say. They didn't hear. They forbeared. Okay? So now what's going to happen? That judgment. That painful judgment that they're not going to escape. Okay? So going back to the article, it says, there is also a broader question beneath the surface. How prepared are modern societies for sudden constraint? For decades, abundance has been the norm, and systems have been built around the assumption of constant availability, right? And even when you go into Revelation 18, let me see if I can find it. Right. Revelation chapter 18, verse 3 says, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Okay, and going back to what I said before about how are they doing that? Through they engulfed these philosophies through the so-called media. Okay, the influence of media. All right, the American influence, the American culture, which is really no culture. A lot of countries and people, a lot of people in different countries have adopted, all right, the thought process and behavior of America. That's why you see trends, you see things that go viral. Okay, it goes viral because everyone around the world can see it. Billions of people can see these things, and it influences how they actually think and how they behave. As depraved as America is, you'll be shocked how people actually do what Americans do. You see what I'm saying? That whole concept of twerking and all that, it's gone around the whole world, even though it started from a dance, right, out in Africa. But over here, Jake, popularized it, turned it into something completely debauched, and the whole world has now taken off on that debauched behavior. You see? And it's all done through Esau's media, because it's debauchery. He will push it in his media and algorithms. But the truth, nah. The Lord had to use a different type of spirit to override the algorithms in order for this truth to go out. Okay, he did things with Drewski skits, right? That's another way the Lord could push this truth out there, because people will see that and question, what's this whole Hebrew Israelite thing all about? And then boom, they run into the truth. Okay, or it could be through IUIC, all the controversies. Mad people woke up during that time where IUIC was marching around Barclays and all that. People were like, they know about the Hebrew Israelites, but that kind of put us in the forefront. Okay, through IUIC's folly, all right, the Lord's name has been glorified. Okay, so even though we get on IUIC and all that, Nate and all his people, they are also doing the works of the Lord, but on a different level. Not like the prophets, All right, they just doing what they got to do, but ultimately, like we always say, they're there to get the non-elect, the ones that the Lord doesn't want. He wants you to know that you're an Israelite, but if you're not of the elect, it's not going to matter. Whether you know you're an Israelite or not, you're still going to be destroyed if you're here in America, Babylon the Great. All right, whether you know you're an Israelite or not. All right, if you're not of the elect, you out of here, you toast, you cooked. All right. So it says here, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Okay, when you go to that word delicacies, let's see what we got here. Let's see. Delicacies. Stranos, right? Stranos, I guess. It says excessive strength which longs to break forth, over strength. Luxury, eager desire. Okay? Luxury, eager desire. And it has the root word stereos. It says strong, firm, immovable, solid, hard, rigid. And the Lord did that on purpose. He built America up to be this strong, rigid, immovable, hard, firm, system that runs the whole entire world, militarily, financially. Okay? They influence the world. All right? And and the Lord has used that to deceive them, because now they think they're still the same bad old, bully. But they don't understand that they've lost their power. It's kind of like I use an example like Ronnie Coleman, right? Ronnie Coleman in the top of his youth, his strength, right? His epic, he was Mr. Olympian. I mean, damn, like if you watch his training videos, bro, this dude, man, what kind of strength? What type of strength? Like the dude, big, tall dude, and now you look at him, right? He's in a wheelchair. He can barely walk. He looks crazy, skinny. He got rods and damn, all kinds of metals up inside his arms, legs, back. You know what I'm saying? He's messed up. He can't walk. He can't do nothing like Ronnie Coleman no more. Even if he tries, he'd be going to the gym sometimes, but he looks crazy. He looks frail, right? But in his mind, he still wants to be that Ronnie Coleman of old. You see what I'm saying? He still can't like let it settle like, it's over. You see? And that's how America is right now. She's done. Look what's going on in Iran. They fighter jets getting shot down. That's not normal. America's always been known to be the ones to be knocking shit out. But now they're getting slapped around. Okay? By Iranians. And it's sending a signal around the world that, yeah, America is weak. This is how she goes down. Once the enemy notices that you're bleeding, it's game over. You know what I'm saying? It's like Dragon Ball Z when Goku's fighting one of those tough guys that you never really hear about. They just pop up out of nowhere. You like, damn, like, how's he gonna beat this nigga? And Goku just get his ass beat the whole time. And then he does one thing, and then the opponent that seems so invincible gets a hit or a scratch or a scar or like a cut. Goku's like, oh shit, you're not invincible after all. Like, I've seen a crack. I've seen something that I can exploit. You appear to be this immovable, solid, hard, rigid, stiff, cruel, stubborn, motherfucker. But I did something that I'm seeing. There's a sign of weakness. There's something that I could actually take you down. And what does that do? It emboldens the person who's been beat down so long. It emboldens them because now they're like, nah, you know what? It just brings up a certain type of strength. All right. And that's how these nations are looking at America. Like, oh, she look like she's struggling right now. Hold up. America? Is this what? The hammer of the earth? The lady of kingdoms? Hold up. So now they're finna take full advantage of that. You're gonna see. Even these EU nations, man. All right, they all gonna stand by and watch America get her ass kicked. And as a matter of fact, they're gonna jump in. All right, they're gonna jump in. Okay, as it tells you in Revelation 17 that they're gonna burn her with fire and eat her flesh. Okay, they're gonna destroy or be a part of that armies that destroys America, man. Everyone is gonna come against America. Okay? So yeah, man. Again, the article says there's always this assumption of constant, availability of everything. That's that luxury, man. It's always been there in abundance. Okay? It says the mere suggestion of limits challenges that assumption, forcing both governments and citizens to reconsider what stability really means. Okay, and one thing that Americans need to really reconsider is what happens when the trucks stop. And I've done a lesson on this before, all right, but I'm going to run it back, but in a very short way. so we can end this thing out. Okay, what happens when the trucks stop? And there are a few bullet points that are very, very plausible in the sense of okay, this is how things work. If the one thing that helps this thing to work is no longer in effect, that means that this thing will cease to work. Okay, so the trucks are like the bloodline of, or the blood system of America, right? It's the heart. Let me just say that it's the heart of America. The trucks are the heart of America. Once the heart stops, you're dead. Okay, you're dead. Let's read the first 24 hours when the trucks stop here in America, because you have these fuel shortages. What it's going to do is it's slowly going to halt trucks. Companies are going to be like, nah, it's not worth doing what we're doing because we're operating at a loss, right? Energy crisis, everything is high, and we can't make business with this. We can't pay you guys enough to even go pay your shit. Like, it's not going to work. All right. Everything is going to be automated anyway. So this is a nice way for them to bring that out, right? And so in the first 24 hours, right, it says delivery of medical supplies to the affected areas will cease. In this case, all of America will be the affected area. Hospitals will run out of basic supplies such as syringes and catheters within hours. Radiopharmaceuticals will deteriorate and become unusable. Service stations will begin to run out of fuel. You see that? Manufacturers using just-in-time manufacturing will develop component shortages. U.S. mail and other package delivery will cease. Now, all these things, right, is all a plausible explanation for a national crisis. We're reading about the crisis right here. Okay. Within one day, right, food shortages will begin to develop. Automobile fuel availability and delivery will dwindle, right? Not just expensive, but dwindle, leading to skyrocketing prices and long lines at the gas pumps. You see, without manufacturing components and trucks for product delivery, assembly lines will shut down, putting thousands out of work. Okay, you already saw Amazon kicking people out because they know, right? They're preparing for these days. So they're getting ahead of the curve by saying, yo, instead of having the assembly line shut down because people can't get to work, fuck that. We're going to get y'all niggas out and use AI robots to do this shit. So they're going to be doing what you people would have said we're going on strike for. These robots going to keep on working. So y'all niggas, whatever you're going to do, you're going to have to do. But you're going to have to fend for yourself because you no longer have a job here. I believe today, or was it yesterday or today, Oracle laid off 20,000 workers. 20,000. These are all software people. Okay? Where the software jobs at for 20,000 people to go do? So they're going to be out of work. And guess what? Or if you're working for Oracle, you was making good money. And especially doing the software, you were making, and we told people this years ago. We said they're using you people to build up AI because there was something called AI learning. And we said they're using all these techs to teach AI how to work and be more human-like, take on human responsibilities. And once that's done, your ass is going to be out of there. And it didn't even take 3 years. Here we are. Okay? Here we are. It happened that fast. Okay? From the time AI started to become into the public frame to now. Look, it didn't even take 3 years. Right? And people are already out of work. And at first, when it started, it was like a boom. Everybody, yo, you want to learn coding. Oh, that was a thing. A few years ago, pre-COVID, that was a thing, man. Coding. You know? Knowing how to code, computers, da-da-da. So you can get a job with these AI companies. Now look, you got ChatGPT giving you answers and all kinds of different shit, man. All kinds of stuff. These are all things that was built from people, labor. And now those people who helped build the system are out of work. And now the system will control how they live. Crazy, build your own prison, right? So within 2 days to 3 days, what's going to happen? Food shortages will escalate, especially in the face of hoarding and consumer panic, right? Supplies of essentials such as bottled water, powdered milk, and canned meat as major retailers will disappear. See? ATMs will run out of cash and banks will be unable to process transactions. Therefore, you're going to have bank runs. Okay? That bank runs is what's going to cause these things to shut down. Services or service stations will completely run out of fuel for autos and trucks. So you're going to go there, it'll say out of service. Like you're going to go like 10, 20 gas stations away. Each and every one is going to say out of service. All right. Gas pump, out of service or whatever. And then the one that you might end up reaching and getting to, they're going to be signs saying, yo, there's rationing and there's a long ass line over there. You see? So you can't even get more than $10, and $10 is probably going to give you 2 gallons and you're done. Get out. It says garbage will start piling up in urban and suburban areas. And that's going to bring diseases. Okay, sicknesses and disease. That's a whole thing right there. That's a whole thing. Garbage piling up. Boy, stop. When you go to New York City, you got rats, right? Rodents, all that shit. And they just piled up, sitting there. My goodness. Place going to smell. Ugh. Anyway, it says container ships will sit idle in ports and rail transport will be disrupted, eventually coming to a standstill. So this is a shutdown of America. Okay? The grinding literally ceasing, man. All right? Within a week, automobile travel will cease due to the lack of fuel. Without autos and buses, many people will not be able to get to work, shop for groceries, or access medical care. And this is all part of the plan of Agenda 2030, right? Sustainable development goals. They don't want any more cars on the roads or, private vehicles on the roads. They have sidewalks for bikes. You've seen that a lot more. If you're in New York, especially, New York City, right? You could barely, it's so frustrating driving in New York City. And, I'm not going to go on a tangent here, but on the sides, you got bus lanes and you got bike lanes. And they're increasingly making the driving lanes smaller and smaller and smaller. You'd be like, a few years ago, about over a decade ago, you had roads that we drive on right now that look completely different. And now we went from 2 lanes. Now we just got 1 lane. Like it's like half a lane. You know what I'm saying? They got cars parked on each side. And then within that, they got a bus lane and then a bike lane. It's like, y'all don't even want us to drive no more? What the fuck is going on here, man? There's not enough space for all this shit. And of course, New York, you got all kinds of crazy ass drivers and shit. It's like, what is going on? But it's all done by design. It's to create frustration so you don't want to even drive. You be like, fuck it, I'm just going to take the bus or the train. But in this case, all them niggas going to be stopped too. Again, it's a systemic halt. All right. For them to be able to overhaul the whole entire system, they have to halt it. They have to bring it to a complete stop. This is how they're going to do it, through the energy crisis. Okay. And that's all they need. So think about all these things that we're talking about within a week, just a week. Now, if they let it string on for about a month, maybe 2, oh man, whew. The kind of people, the death and the chaos that's going to ensue in the streets of America and around the world, it's going to be disgusting, man. All right. And a lot of people are not ready for that. Mentally, they're not ready. Physically, they're not ready. And definitely spiritually, they're not ready. They have no idea what the hell is going on. All right. For you to be spiritually ready, you have to have 2 things: the wisdom and knowledge of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai and faith. If you ain't got that, you're done. All right. You're done. You're done, son. All right. So yeah, it's not something you can go buy. Nah. Those are 2, the intangibles that you need. All right. Wisdom and knowledge of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, right? Meaning that encompasses the history, that encompasses the prophecies, understanding the times we're in, right? Isaiah 33:6. Okay. But also having faith that the Lord is going to take care of you, right? He said he's going to feed us. He's going to give us water to drink. He's going to give us shelter, right? He said, no evil is going to come nigh our dwelling. All right. Remember, there was always a Goshen in Egypt. Always remember that. All right. It says hospitals will begin to exhaust oxygen supplies. Okay. And America is a sick land. I believe America has the highest, is the highest population of unhealthy people, sick people. All right. Who are strung up on pharmaceutical witchcraft, right? Witchcraft medication. All right. Pharmakia. Okay. It says that within 2 weeks, right? Within 2 weeks, the nation's clean water supply will begin to run dry. Whew, that's going to be a problem. And then within 4 weeks, the nation will exhaust its clean water supply and water will be safe for drinking only after boiling. As a result, gastrointestinal illness will increase. That means it's already started. Further taxing an already weakened healthcare system. And that's also going to do what? It's going to eliminate a lot of people by the millions. Okay? Especially those who took that jump shot. Because remember, those people, when these lockdowns come down, the kind of draconian measures that's going to be put in place is going to be so crazy. And that's because majority of the people are not considered human beings after the jump shot, because your so-called DNA has been altered, right? Something known as CRISPR gene editing, which is part of that mRNA process, right? The CRISPR gene editing thing that Gil Bates had conjured up. All right, and I believe he patented it with 666, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so your DNA has been altered, so therefore you're not even considered a human being. You're considered a biological product, okay, made in a lab. This shit runs deep, man, and it's disgusting. But they did this shit, so therefore they, you know what I'm saying, like, you're no longer a human being. So there are certain unalienable rights that applies to human beings that will not apply to these said people. Okay, people who are patented. You got patents, like you walking around and Bluetooth popping up, like it's showing your patent number and all kinds of weirdo shit. Like, what is that? Huh? What is that? See, so they have that jurisdiction over these so-called people who are no longer people in according to how they do things. You see, so yeah, they're going to be bringing out these measures to affect these new, what they call transhumans. Okay, these transhumans, man, they're not humans, they're transhumans. They're turned into something else, you know. And that those measures that's going to be governing these new transhumans is going to affect us as well, because we're in the land. See what I'm saying? Just like the CV, when it happened, we're in the land, so these things affect us as well. All right, but the Lord delivers us from these things, because it's not really for us per se. Again, like I said, it's for these people who are non-humans. All right, they don't got the Spirit of the Lord on them. Okay, so yeah, this is basically, you know, a timeline, right? Just a month, within 4 weeks of a timeline of what's going to happen with when the trucks stop, with all this energy stuff. And this is all part of what's going to happen as a setup for other effects, because these are all interconnected. Anything that we just read about, you know, whether it be the food shortages or medical supplies or, you know, gas or, you know, money, right? Or even health wise, right? Garbage not being removed and hospitals being overwhelmed. These are all things that will affect, you know, you'll have secondary effects. Okay. And those are things that people are not even considering. All right. Your inability to maintain telecommunications, like I said before, with the example of not having your phone or not being able to make calls, right? Having so much chaos that, you know, the system is so strained, you're going to have reduced law enforcement. Think about that. There's no police. There's no so-called safety in your societies no more, right? Which is going to result in what? Increased crime. Okay. And with increased crime, you're going to have what? Sicknesses, injury, death, right? And it's going to be higher death rates, you know, which is all going to be culminating with the civil war, civil unrest. Okay. So this is all, everything that the Lord has told the prophets to come warn the world about. It's all happening, as you read in Jeremiah 28. Okay. And we always bring out these same precepts because you have to hear this. This is what we do. It's a warning. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to be always breaking down Daniel 11. Like, nah, Daniel 11 is not pertaining to now. We're not going to be talking about Daniel 11. We're going to be talking about Revelation. We're going to be talking about Isaiah. We're going to be talking about 2nd Ezra. We're going to be talking about Jeremiah. Okay. All the prophetic scriptures that pertain to the downfall of America, because that's the next chapter. We're in that chapter now. The downfall of America, Babylon the Great. Okay. And that's what the angels saw. Okay. And that's what we're witnessing right now. All right. This is the book of Revelation. We're going to close it out. Revelation chapter 18 and verse 1. It says, "And after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird." Okay. So that's going to be the end result of America. All right. What you see now, right? You don't see, you know, every foul spirit and, you know, devils. And so you don't see that like out here, like doleful creatures and satyrs and all. You're not seeing that. America is not a desert, right? But after it's all said and done, she will become a desert, pitch black desert. Ain't no lights, no electricity, none. done. Pitch black, dirt, black, desert, cooked, out of here. Okay? And once the fire settles and it's just seeing smoke, all right, all you see is the smoke. Once all the smoke and everything settles down, which is going to be hundreds of years from now, right? If not thousands, okay? The smoke is going to be, hey, it says forever. Everlasting, it's just going to be there, right? Every single time we pass by, fly over, be like, yo, that's Babylon, man. Damn, look, it's still tiny smoke. Yo, damn, the Lord really cooked this place OD, bro. You know, damn, it's been like 10,000 years. And whenever you swing by, you still see a little smoke there, right? It's almost like the Lord is leaving it as a reminder, as a commemoration. After all these thousands of years, the Lord, like, yo, his anger is still, like, you could still see it. Like, look at that land. It's just pitch black. There's no trees growing there. It's just like dark land, bro. Right? It talks about America is likened onto the valley of death, right? And when it's said and done, she will look like a valley of death. All right? That's what America is going to look like. And that's not symbolic. That's literal. She will look like a valley of death, which is pitch black and there's no life there. Okay? So that's the fate of this wicked nation. And it's a reward from Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. And we're going to witness that. We're going to witness that. Let's get that real quick. This is the book of Psalm chapter 91 verse 8. It says, only with thine eyes shalt thou behold and see the reward of the wicked. Anyway, I'm ending off there, lowering you, edified and informed. In closing, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Ruach HaKodesh, the water Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, and until next time, Shalom.